Was it really about home advantage? How much did that play in this match, Benny?
It was huge. We talked about it on the show yesterday that the two teams, Mexico and Ecuador, they're even, right? But it didn't look at all even. It looked like there was a massive advantage. I think we even, understated the advantage that they were going to have, because you go back to 40 years ago is when they last won a knockout game. Where was the game? It was in Mexico. And I think you see it again 40 years later. It feels like they've been waiting for this moment. And not only did the fans show up like we saw, but the team showed up on the field. Ecuador had no chance. They were suffocated time and time again. The energy was relentless. It was the best I've seen Mexico look for at least 20 years.
Look, I've been to Mexico City many times on vacation. This is a place where the altitude, if you've ever ran at altitude, especially that altitude, the smog in the air, it's a polluted city. So you're breathing in, the air feels heavy. You can smell kind of like the pollutants in the air. So to think of playing at a high level, running 90 minutes, and to see what Ecuador succumbed to in that first half, all those scenes were great. What was even better is seeing maybe the greatest Mexican performance. That first half is the best I've ever seen Mexico play. Yeah. I mean, this guy, Gilberto Mora, 17 years old. 17, I was hanging outside of 7-Eleven smoking Swisher Sweets. This guy has the nerve, has the fortitude to even try that curling effort from such a narrow angle. That looks to me like a guy, and I've heard all about him, he's the next big thing, and you hear that a lot of players that then fade away. This guy's character, to try what he tried, to show the guile and the composure in the biggest Mexican game on home soil in a World Cup in decades. I'm bought in. I'm bought in on this Mora kid. What a player.
He was lights out. And I think that's the important part of this message. Yes, the fans showed up for this team and for their country. I mean, you could hear it at the Azteca, even on the broadcast. The chants, the cheers, the boos whenever Ecuador briefly had the ball in that first 45 minutes. But it's the fact that every single player came out to perform like a Gilberto Mora, who said, I don't care that I'm a teenager. I belong on this stage. The spotlight is the brightest. The fans are the loudest. And I'm going to perform. I'm going to have the confidence to take a shot like that, to drive at defenders, to create space for teammates. And it was a beautiful performance. I mean, they played their best football. It was so fun to watch. It was fun to listen to. It was fun to watch the fans get involved into it. It was a great game.
Is using the word perfect to describe Mexico yesterday too much, or can we use the word perfect, Benny?
I think the first half was perfect. And it reminded me of the U.S.'s performance in the first half against Paraguay in the first game of the World Cup for them. It was nonstop. Right? Every time they lost the ball, it seemed like there was people swarming all over the ball to win it back from Ecuador. The second goal comes off of an incredibly uncharacteristic mistake from Pacho, right? Where he he doesn't know what to do. He feels that pressure coming, and he just tries to boot it, and he kicks it straight into I forget who received the ball there that then eventually played it through. But it was relentless, and I think they not only suffocated them physically, but mentally. And you saw at the end of the game as well, right? People were losing their minds, and Capia got a red card. It was a full 45-minute performance in the first half, and then a different version of another full 45-minute performance in the second.
I'm glad you mentioned that Pacho giveaway, because what Mexico did is they negated the number one strength of Ecuador, the spine. Hincapie of Arsenal, Pacho of PSG, Caicedo of Chelsea. Vita has been a standout player in the World Cup too. The defending was all over the place. Even on the second goal where Raul, he's able to get that 1-2, and he's that alone just inside the box against one of the better defensive units and spines in the tournament when you look at the defensive midfielders and the center backs. They completely negated the main strength of Ecuador, and Ecuador looked like they couldn't defend. They looked like the spatial awareness, the holes that they let through. It was almost like they were overcome by the location, by the moment, and that 12th man of the crowd gave them a push that, they say, oh, it's the 12th man. And what does that even mean? It means what you saw yesterday of how Mexico played, because that was the clearest example of the 12th man doing its job and giving these guys a gear that they probably didn't even know they had.
And just to add one more thing with that, which is super interesting for me, is Quito, the capital of Ecuador, is actually much higher altitude than Mexico City. So you can't really say that the players of Ecuador were fazed by the altitude itself, which should be a big problem for DR Congo, or more likely England, in the next round.
Okay, so they weren't fazed by the altitude, but the crowd, that must have
fazed them. The crowd, for sure. That's the point. Like that, the crowd and the way that Mexico played was what truly fazed them, I think. And so Man, whoever's going to go into that stadium, into the round of 16, I think are going to have a tough time playing against that team, Mexico.
And you've played in that stadium, right? You've played in the Azteca
I have,
before.
yeah.
What was the environment like as you're on the other team?
Look, I can tell you that it wasn't the same as what I saw last night. Maybe the atmosphere was similar, but the players on the field yesterday had some sort of energy that I've never seen before.
You say that they're used to altitude. A lot of those guys also play in Europe. So your body does get acclimated to what you've been used to. But how many days before would you say you need to play at that altitude? Like, do you need to camp there like a week before, 2 weeks before? Is it just a few days?
I've heard differing opinions in terms of you either want to get there 1 day prior or as little as prior to the kickoff possible, or you want to be there a full week prior. And I don't even think that's possible, right? For the World Cup, you're not going to show up to the, England still has a game to get to play if they were to win today before they go to Mexico City. So they can't go. So I wonder if they try and go, the night before the game only, so they get 1 night's sleep and then they play. I've heard if you go 24 to 48 hours, it might be the worst because your body now tries to adapt and it doesn't actually fully adapt and you're still tired from the travel. And so it's almost like negative in both ways, but I don't know if there's a perfect solution to, playing in altitude and then playing in front of those fans. And if Mexico comes with that kind of energy again, man, I don't know if many teams can deal with it.
And it wasn't even the energy. I mean, think of that cross from the right side that set up Raul inside, that Raul just headed it slightly wide. The quality of the cross. So yes, it was the energy, it was the intensity, but I saw some brilliant 1-2s. The technical ability, the passing, everything was working out. They were playing as well as any team that we've seen at this World Cup. I'd say that Mexico and Colombia right now, two of the best playing sides in the World Cup. That's been one of the bigger surprises so far of the tournament.
The highlights are all the attacking power that we saw from Mexico. Of course, the goals, the dominance in the first 45 minutes, but then they changed their game plan in the second half, Claudia, and they sat a little bit and they said, okay, we are now no longer going to concede a goal in this game. And they did that. I mean, now they are 4 straight games in this World Cup where they haven't conceded a goal. They're only one of 2 teams to have done that. And they mitigated anything that Ecuador was trying to do centrally down the pitch, because that's where Ecuador wanted to build and connect passes, and they weren't able to do that. I saw a passing chart at the end of the match that basically showed all of Ecuador's passing was wide, lateral, or backwards. They were not able to penetrate moving forward, and that's the defensive structure and stance that Mexico had taken in the second half.
They were also going up against a pretty toothless attack. I think that was one of the main issues with Ecuador in the group stage, is how wasteful they were. Ener Valencia is beyond the twilight. What's after the twilight of his career? They don't have anyone there. The problem is, if they had a younger Felipe Caicedo, right, one of the great Ecuador strikers of the 21st century, they'd be playing. The reason why Ener Valencia is there, I think part of it is sentimental, but also there's not like that one great hope in the attack that they could be like, okay, let's give this guy some rest. He's pushing the end of his career. It's time to move on, because Ener Valencia, he was getting swallowed up. He had a tough time the entire tournament. And I think that's what also held Ecuador back, is that as good as they were with the center backs and the defensive midfielders, clear issues out wide, clear issues in the attack where it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah. So looking ahead to who they have to play, their next game will be on Sunday. So they have a little bit more. They have 1 day rest over who their opponent will be, which will either be England or DR Congo, who are playing today. Lisa, what are we expecting to see from this Mexico side? Do you think they bring out the same plan regardless of who their opponent is? I mean, we have people in the YouTube comments talking about how Mexico's passing was out of this world last night.
Yeah, I mean, in the first 45 minutes, it was Mexico's game. It didn't matter who was the opposition in the game against Ecuador. And if they have the same mentality to be able to do that against whether it is England or DR Congo, and I think they will, because of how they played, the response from the fans, the response from the stadium, the celebrations afterwards in Guadalajara and Mexico City. Yeah, I think Mexico is on top of the world right now. They're flying with confidence. It doesn't necessarily matter who they're playing if they're able to bottle up what they did in the first 45 and carry that over to this game.
Assuming England go through, and again, that's an assumption because I think England have been poor most of their games, they would fancy a round of 16 against Mexico in any other World Cup where it's not being played, where it's being played. This has given Mexico this mystique, and also the teams going there knowing the record of teams going to the Azteca. I worry if England go through, and again, it's not a lock against Congo today, I would worry heavily if I was an English fan about being able to pull something out of that stadium if the team is going to play like they did last night. That is by no means a good draw for England.
I'd be terrified if I'm England and I watch that game.
Same?
shaking right now.
Yeah.
I just think and I agree with everything that's been said. I think conversely, you have to assume that if England gets there, they pose more of a threat going forward than Ecuador did. Of course, yeah. And so as much as Mexico is, I think we're going to see the same type of Mexico regardless of who they play. But I do think that in England will provide some sort of counter to that as well, where we didn't see any of that from Ecuador. So it should be a really interesting game, and I think it'll matter who ends up scoring first. And again, big assumption if they can get past Congo today.
Yeah, well, it's going to be such a great game. Regardless if it's England or DR Congo, that's going to be taking on Mexico in Mexico City because they will have that home advantage.
Thanks for watching this video from Morning Footy. For all news and insights regarding leagues around the world like EFL, Serie A, and all UEFA competitions, both men's and women's, don't forget to sign up for Paramount+.